And again, this is we're also abbreviating this to the point where we're not going into the net square footage in the traditional sense of analyzing square footage or how it pertains to how the code interprets calculations. It's primarily that we can compare apples with apples, and we're looking to utilize all the calculations you guys did already on these categories. So none of the categories will change. It's primarily about how we break down the percentages and be able to compare each project with one another. So I got project analysis, and then the file was uploaded to week 3. And I think it should be in your in the Teams files, and it looks something like this. So what I'm looking to do, and here's a bit of an explanation. This is what the old one looked like, so discard this, but keep the data. What we're looking at is essentially 2 types of categories right here. One is the gross square footage, as it's sort of defined, and then the net assignable square footage, which is a definition of the net assignable square footage of a floor is calculated by adding all the rooms on a floor, excluding public corridors, elevators, stairwells, and all types of mechanical rooms, public bathrooms, custodial rooms, and shaft spaces. Note, NASF, or net assignable square footage, calculations do not include wall thickness or space that is open to. So there's like an actual technical definition of this. This is how, let's say, universities calculate sort of rooms. And I think it might be the easiest way of utilizing this. So what I'd like you to do first is go to the old file that you have, select A16 through I30. I30. So right, so you can just drag this all the way down. Go to your other file, select A10 through H17, Control C should activate that area and place it back in here. Control V populates this. Now it could depend on what version of Excel that you're running. Just double check when you double click on some of these cells. You should see what it's actually tabulating. This should still be all of that. This should be the total up here. So what we'll be able to evaluate is essentially a percentage, and this being the gross square footage. Another way of, so there's a little edit involved. Select this whole row, double click, and it gets the white, so the GSF will be there. So all you need to do now is essentially what you have in these cells right here, common outdoor, and copy it into these cells right here. So it's a copy paste of the data, or you can just type it straight in. I used, again, just a kind of generic, I test the numbers if they tabulate what they're supposed to do and so forth. So these aren't actual numbers. And you'll be able to get your other information back up that you selected up here. Slide it up here. You can select these cells and right click. You can cut it or delete it. Right? So clear content or delete, and bye-bye. And that's your transplant. Any questions? Cool. So I'll, yeah.
Philip,
yeah.
where can we find the new Excel sheet?
Yeah, so let me, I'll go share another screen. Let me see, do you guys see this now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we keep it in general. It's week 3 under files. New worksheet, edit. Yeah? Was that Brandon?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Quick question, maybe just about the one thing that I wondered if everybody knew, or is how do we know if when we look at the percentage, our efficiency? What do you guys think
goal?
about this? I know it's not this is less technical, but maybe more of a, like when we look at the column net, what is it? Or is it? Yeah, percentages.
Yeah.
That one, the 76, the net assignable square footage, that's generally what we refer to as like is like kind of an efficiency rating or a certain kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do we know what is a good number?
Well, you could see the higher, right? The more rentable space or square footage that you have that you can actually charge, right? Like if you look at a building as a piece of infrastructure, the infrastructure that you build, like elevators, right, staircases, corridors, mechanical shafts, if you take square footage off of that, you can't really say like, oh, I need you to pay for this one too, right? So when you go into like leases, it's like square footage of actual space, right? But you include that calculation to include, something that will obviously pay for the rest of the building.
So like I can speak a little bit to that. I've worked on a few Oliver McMillan projects, and from what I know, the big boys like to at least hit 85.
Wow.
But that's nothing, because the little boys, like I know, like me and like even some of the other MRED guys, we have to hit
90,
190. I mean, nothing can be, what I mean? We can't spend money on any kind of elevators or any kind of amenities or pool houses or blah, 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 or circulation or so, anywhere from 85 up, I think is where real life, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good thing to make a good architecture, but that's kind of how they're penciling it. They want to hit 85 at least.
I have a question. Mine was at
Yeah.
93, and it went down to 50. It went to 53. It's so sad.
Well,
What do you mean it went to 53?
Well, so I had 84 units originally, but which was too many to be comparable. So I dropped it down to 72, and then I had to drop down the square footage a little bit, but the outdoor space remained the same. And then technically, the private outdoor space is technically rented because it's part of the unit. So shouldn't that be included in the total net square footage?
Outdoor private or outdoor common?
Outdoor prived, because the
outdoor private, we could, yeah. So
that would help with my percentage.
that
would help.
It would, yeah. I mean, we could change this to say, and I'm gonna do an edit on the fly right here. You add this.
Well, Philip, maybe you want to edit it on the.
Yeah. So it just went up 5%.
Oh.
But with fake numbers. So, but yeah, I can edit it right on the sheet. So let me do that. So that would be.
Oh, because it is rented technically. I mean, it's part of the apartment. It's rentable floor area.
Yeah.
That just brought mine from 60 to 96.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dallas.
I just made you guys a bunch of money. So here, okay, so I'm editing this right here. So for our ones that are storming ahead, you might have to do this or copy this cell. Type it out.
Well, while Philip's doing that, Ojay, I'm curious what your thoughts are on. Do you think
So
that that's a
it's done.
good?
So it's accessible now for everyone.
Thank you. Do you think that's a good, based on your experience? Is that like a good constraint, or would you always wish that you had kind of a little bit more flexibility in terms of the architectural, like you know what I mean?
Well, it's just a number, because what that doesn't tell you are the qualitative. There's no way to measure qualitative element, like quality of space, like we always talk about, like, like volume or natural light, or this is strictly like a two-dimensional analysis of you know what I mean, like a plan view analysis of what is net square private rentable versus circulation. And it's directly it's the cost of building all this other space, and not, you know what I mean, and not being able to put a number on it to rent it. So in some ways it does help cut down on circulation, like excessive circulation, because you're trying to reduce these double loaded corridors and these like maze-like floor plans, which tends to be kind of a bad architecture in itself. But I don't think it tells the full story, to be honest, of what a good building can be.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of number that I think sort of your standard developer likes to brag about.
Yeah.
Right? But I think the bigger picture is primarily, like, I think another metric will be like, what's your turnover rate, right?
That would be a great metric that nobody would talk about.
Yeah, no one wants to talk about that. Or let's say, how long have your tenants been in there? Like, just or a general survey of like, how likely are you to like continue your lease? And I think that's perhaps speaking more on the kind of qualitative aspect. And I do want to make this very clear to the studio. In no way are we evaluating your project in terms of like what that number is, if you have a good building or a bad building. It's just one way of slicing it.
It's a really kind of like snapshot metric, like a little quickie.
Yeah. So it's looking at that, because you could say, look, I took a hit on like 10% of net assignable square footage, but I think, look, I have all these amenities where, for example, kids could actually play outside.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have like community barbecues here at the roof deck and the roof garden, right? Like, those are all things they may rank in my book very high. But yes, it costs. There's construction costs associated with making it, right? And who wants to pay for it? So I think we've gotten to the point where you ask anyone to pay for something that's common. It's like, why would I pay for that if I don't get to use it?
There's one thing I've been kind of tracking lately, and it's kind of controversial, and that is this whole notion of hierarchies of amenities, and based on affordability. And everyone's heard of the poor door, which is what some developers are like assigning certain entrances on side of buildings for the lower income tenants to use.
Yeah,
which I think is horrible. But one thing that I'm totally bad, right? But one thing I think that's interesting is sort of a look at it for the other way, is like a pay to play amenity. Like, so what if I live in the same building but I don't use your amenities? I don't want to pay that extra. Like, let's say I don't go to the pool or go to the gym. Do I get a discount on my rent, kind of thing? So it's interesting to, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, we have a problem here.
What's going on?
I'm double counting numbers. So I get 107%. It's terrible. Yeah.
We had a question. Yeah, we had a question, I think it was Christian, about, what was it, Christian? It was your loft. You have a, right? Does he count?
Oh yeah. So
Ooh.
you have a loft in like a couple of them. So
Ah.
do I count that as
How high up is it?
I mean it's only like 8 feet off the ground.
And how much ceiling space do you have in the loft? How much can you stand? Is it
I
over
think
7?
it's like 6 feet.
I think you have to move. So we could get in the weeds if we want, but we're headed that way. So let's say this: if you have a space that's 16 feet tall,
It's
you're
phantom
gonna
floor.
the phantom floor. There's a phantom floor or like an imaginary floor line at 15 feet. They're gonna hit you with that square footage twice.
Okay.
So I think if you're saying you have like an 8 foot plus 7, you want to do the math and try to stay under that 15 feet, or you're going to get hit twice. It's a real thing that we all pay attention to for sure.
Okay.
What do you mean twice?
So
literally double.
double it?
Don, if you have a space that's like, let's say you're like, I want to build a volume that's I'll just exaggerate.
Do we
That's
do this in Miro? Because I think this is an important section drawing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go Miro. Ojay's desk.
Yeah.
Ojay's desk.
Let me go to Miro here. Go to my desk. Just loading. Sorry.
Because some guys, they put a loft in later, right? They like,
Exactly. So if we have let's say, like, I just love tall spaces. I want my lofts, which is kind of true. I do love tall spaces. Okay, that's not the pen I wanted. Okay. Let's say I don't have my stylus. I'm with I'm using a mouse. Oh boy. So this is a horrible section. This is my wobbly house.
What is that, like the section of SpongeBob?
SpongeBob Square section. Here's my mezzanine. Let's say I want to do a 20-foot volume. I'll give you some scale here. You're going to get hit with not only this FAR right here, whatever that is. There's an imaginary plane called phantom floor at 15 feet that they're going to count this area too, because they know in the future someone's going to, whether you have a mezzanine in there or not, someone's going to come in there and put a mezzanine at some point, maybe, right? Or not, worst case scenario, maybe even a floor. So yeah, so if you're above 15 feet, you guys, you got to be careful. You're going to get hit twice with square footage in that area.
So that whatever the square footage would be if there was a floor covering that entire 15 feet?
At this 15 feet mark, if you're just in air right there, anything in this on this line is going to be counted as FAR.
Okay.
That's why you want to have your floor to floor at 15 feet or have this imaginary line within that floor cavity. I've always challenged this. I always wondered if they're talking about the ceiling, the floor itself, or the finished floor, but that's getting into the super weeds.
Okay.
But I think I love this, like because one would wonder, is like, what's the magic with the number 15? And it's actually it's quite a beautiful explanation in my opinion, is that say, okay, floor to floor, I'm doing, so for me, floor to floor literally means like if I have a floor, right? from here to here, this is 15 feet. Okay.
Yep.
Now, the lowest legal space that you can make, right? Like the ceiling. Well, now it gets even further in the weeds. Right?
You want to get in the weeds.
Like, but let's say you want to do, well, okay, if it's just a bathroom and kitchen, right? You can go as low as 7 feet. Okay. Now, this is where you can start seeing if you want to count this as a sleeping space, like a livable, you need to have at least 7.5 feet.
Yeah, or 7. You can get 7
for a sleeping.
No,
bedroom,
you're right.
Right.
You're right. A bedroom's got to be 7.5, right?
Got to be 7.5, right? So
yeah, you're right.
So 6'6", 7'6". Now, look at where our math is, right? Like if you look, the floor assembly, right? Like here, if this is 2 different units, you have a minimum of 1 foot or 12 inches. 15, probably. I mean, that's a terrible assembly. And then, so you got what, 7 plus 7.5, 14.5, 15.5, right? So you got no room for this structure right here. So the 15 is pinching you in that you can't have, they're trying to get you that you can't have 2 legal spaces in 1 volume.
Yep.
So it's an assault on density.
Well, I mean, that's maybe one way of looking at it. I think it's more the story of this, that you say, well, I just have 1 space. It's 20 foot tall, but I'll slam in a floor right here and I get to rent it twice.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's a lot
there's
of
predators
things
out there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's people that'll take advantage of that, but also, you know, they miss out on fees, collecting fees too for square footage.
Yeah. School fees. Yeah. So so that the magic in 15 makes it really tough in terms of like splitting, right? The workaround is that you keep it at 7, you keep it at 7 here, and see if you can squeeze this. Like, see, you can't really do it, right? Unless you just call this storage up here.
There you go. That's a magic word.
Well, but you know, I'm not supposed to tell you that because you know,
So
like
it's
bed
storage.
This goes into the ethics.
Yeah.
Right. So this is an ethical thing. You're like, well, you know, I'm fine to stick someone in a 6 foot tall space and call it a bedroom. Right.
No,
that's ethics. Yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Philip, I mean this is kind of the section of the Essex lofts, right? In
Sure.
Ted Smith project, almost identical. So I'm curious how he must have considered that storage.
I can't speak for him, right? I mean, in all fairness, you know, but this is why I think this is asking all of us to. It's an ethical thing, like it's.
I'm fine with it.
Well, see, so that's your position, right?
Well, okay, let's back up. Okay, so to get to that storage, how do you get up there? I mean, if you're trying to, you know, do you put a stair there or do you put a ladder? And then you just go down the ethical wormhole.
Right.
Or I should say the liability wormhole.
Correct.
So, you know, you can do it, but
Stairs?
Stairs are going to take up how much? If you're doing a space this crunched, you're probably trying to save space.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
here's my workaround, right? Is do a 20 foot tall space, have a delta of 5 foot max in a space. Because there's this clause This is still one space. If your lowest point is at 15, you can have a total delta of 5 foot. But notice you can't stack another floor on top, so this becomes a roof condition.
Yeah.
Now I
headroom.
can do your and give you this, and that's all legal. But
Does
this
it
is
have to be a slope?
Yes.
Can it be
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or a pitch. It can be a pitch, I think.
Yeah.
Pitch.
So Don, this is C Street.
This is C Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can't have a floor above it.
Well, because of the slope, yeah.
Well, I mean, you could just drop a soffit and do that, right? And
What do you like? You make this a
yeah,
full
you
assembly?
just frame it.
No, I think they would.
Oh,
They would
yeah,
consider it.
would-
Yeah.
They would
then
consider
they
the
go
soffit
to,
would be
like,
decorative.
Yeah.
And they'd say like, yeah, it won't gonna get you at the Phantom again. Yeah. Because now you've gone from floor to floor without acknowledging this.
Yeah, so that's you got to have a roof condition to pull that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just be careful with the tall ceilings because you're going to get hit with FAR twice if you don't watch it. I mean, if you plan for it, that's fine. But if you don't, if you're already close to your limit, they will pop you for it and plan check.
Yeah.
Do they plan check once, or do they ever do follow-ups?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
There's a lot of rounds.
That's an interesting question, Don. So what happens is it'll get caught in plan check. I would say 90% of the time. However, so the reality is the when it's getting built, if you happen to get away with it, the inspector is not a zoning expert. The inspector is
by definition, he's not supposed to call you on that. Like he's enforcing the document that was approved.
So he's looking for, he's actually literally just looking at your drawings. But he's also very knowledgeable, he or she, in life safety. It's primarily what they're looking for, to be honest, is life safety. They might not even look at your plans. They're looking at like guardrails, how tall are your risers, how wide is your stair, what's wrong with your electrical, blah, blah, blah. So, if you get away with it, fine. But, if you have a tenant in the space and something happens and someone has to go back and look at that, yeah, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. It's going to trigger at any point, something could trigger an inspection, and then you get dinged.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
code
why.
violation.
Yeah, that's why.
How about that second story is just like on a hydraulic? So when you are going upstairs, you just push a little button, and your second story like comes down like 2 feet.
Inspector Gadget House.
Sinks down, dude. Yeah, well, if you're trying to, I thought the whole point was to save money. Christian.
Save money? What do you mean?
Oh, he's got it built already. Christian is like tricking it out.
Yeah, are we allowed to design this thing or not? I'm out here reading up new techniques and everything. I'm trying to do something cool.
Yeah.
Christian's out there on a site actually building his right now.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yep.
Did I stop sharing?
No, we still see it.
Any other questions, guys? While we have the larger group, that anything at all that can help. Any questions as we pass into the next into the weekend?
Yeah, I have one. What Excel version do we use? Because the latest one puts us at over 100%. So do we use the first one?
It just got changed. Sorry.
Get that cleaned up.
Yeah.
So all right. So there's a new one.
It's super new.
Okay. All right. I'll use that one. Thank you.
Hot off the press.
Yeah, so the percentage isn't like it's not like we're going to go around and judge you based on your percentage of
No,
what you've
no.
achieved. It's just good to know. Like that's the way this entire exercise is, by the way. It's not like this is just good to know. You know what I mean? This is like it's not like there's a correct, there's a whole bunch of moving parts here. We're just going through the trial here of kind of exercising, practicing it. Any other questions that we can float? No.
So we're sticking with 72 units, but will we be able to put more units? Because I noticed that when I double the amount of units I have, the efficiency also goes up.
Yeah, that'll.
Yeah, that will do it.
Yeah, we'll get into that
Yeah.
next, soon is like filling out the site, so we're just working right now within a kind of quantifiable, and I'm working with my group on just the cluster, just the data on specifically just the cluster, so yeah, you're right. That's a good point, right? That as the economy of scale, as it gets bigger, there's certain efficiencies start to, yeah.
Also, I kind of went crazy on mine, but I think it'll all work out. Because I'm building on a military site, so there isn't very much, there isn't anything that I can't technically build. I mean, I could technically build to begin with, but I mean, I'm taking the liberty just to design the area into something else. But I'm adding like bus routes and a bunch of other things. But is there like too much, or is there?
Yeah, probably bus routes.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Dallas.
Well, someone muted me. I don't know what you didn't hear, but thank you so much for muting me. That's so nice.
What?
But anyways, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Dallas, we were just saying, don't get ahead of yourself here with the site development stuff. We've got a plan for that, so don't.
Okay.
It's not recommended to start
Well,
plan.
Like bus routes on Coronado, since that's where. And so I was thinking that if I added bus routes, that would kind of help me with my limit parking space. I mean, I have a ton of room, but cars create a lot of CO2 emissions. I feel like the goal is to try to make a healthier building to begin with. So that was kind of my idea. Maybe ahead of myself, but just a general idea.
We'll be able to apply that thinking in the next exercise, but it's not going to be directly for your site necessarily. So let's keep thinking, and we're going to have a container for those thoughts in the next exercise.
For sure. Yeah. No, I like how you're thinking about that, though.
No, we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement there.
Yep.
Any other questions, guys? Okay.
Well, maybe just one thing. Let's say, what are we working on right now? Can someone help me regurgitate or tell me what they heard?
Fix the data sheet. Troubleshooting all of our net square footage, stuff like that, putting it into the new formulas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making sure that falls within correct parameters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And then investigating your zones, right? Digging, seeing what you can find. If it's Giovanni, what was the zone that you had? It was like the La Jolla such and such, right? Those what is it? LJSP dash whatever.
Community
those are kind of special. Can we find, right? I don't know. I'm sure you have found some stuff on that by now, right? So yeah, find what you. It's a research exercise.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna hang up and reconnect with my group.
Cool. Sounds good.
Sounds
Same
good?
same here,
Sounds
guys.
good. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All
See you
right.
on the other side.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
See ya.